before we jump into it, how have you been? I know you've been working really, really hard. How's it been after the election? Because you said you're going to take 2 weeks off and you didn't.
I didn't. I was meant to. Amateur, I guess. I thought that I would be able to have a week off and spend some time with my family and my partner, but no. Everyone else decided to check out as well, and the day of the election, basically, and people are looking for answers. People are trying to understand what's going on. People needed to conceptualize exactly, did we win? Did we lose? To what extent did we win? To what extent did we lose? And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll talk. And so I was doing that live streams every night, and just getting people answers and trying to give people answers on election fraud as well. To what extent was there election fraud? And to an extent, I'm still working on that. But no, I'm tired, mate.
Can we start there? Can we
sure.
start there to break it down? Election fraud. Now, I've been telling people, I'm not an expert, but I've been telling people if the numbers were closer, then I would think election fraud is an issue. But I think a lot of people, I've been interviewing a lot of candidates I talked to, they got like 0.5% or 1%. So I think if there was election fraud, it still wouldn't mean much. You know what I mean? But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's lots of different election fraud that's been announced. As we've talked about previously, there's the lower house, which is the green ballot, and there's the upper house, which is the white ballot. Now, it's the white ballot where you probably know people like Damian Richardson and probably Monica Smith, where they've had a lot of problems there with the AEC workers giving out incorrect information about how to vote above the line. I put that down to negligence and just workers not knowing exactly what's going on. There was something like the AEC was short tens of thousands of workers this election, quite a lot, because they didn't actually allow people that were unjabbed to work for them unless they had an exemption. So there's that. But with the lower house, it's pretty accurate. We came in about 15 to 20% across the board in Australia, and we saw a situation where the Freedom parties took a huge chunk of the vote out from the majors. But no surprises, it was nowhere near what was needed. And, we talked about that a week out from the election. We weren't doing we weren't doing the things needed to a great enough extent in order to win seats. We just weren't. And anyone that tells you otherwise, the only question I have for them is, well, which seat did you think we were going to win? And no one could tell me exactly. If there were to be seats that got up, it was going to be the electorate of Hunter. It was going to be the electorate of Kennedy, which was he did get up, Bob Catter, and I said Craig Kelly would lose his seat, and he did, and so look, and that's not a surprise. I mean, we knew he was going to lose his seat a year ago when I was working for him. I don't know why he didn't run in the Senate for New South Wales. I think he actually would have gotten up, but anyway, election fraud. Michael, there was not much election fraud in the lower house. I mean, if you look at the systems that the AEC do, if you look at the chain of custody with these ballots, it's very, very strict, very strict. These are example ballots. They're not the actual thing.
They're not the extra ones you were voting on all around.
Vote early and vote often. There was one interesting thing that went out, and I'm glad Topher Field also made a video out on this. But a lot of people thought I was trying to sell them a lie, and it was that on election night there are a lot of scrutineers that came out and basically said, we saw that at about 6:40 p.m. the officer in charge of the electoral count in each voting booth, they'd open up this envelope, and it would have two of the major parties, and they would basically end up saying, don't count the preferences the way that Topher Field's marbled video does. Essentially, we're not doing the preference flows. We're just going to count the two major parties and how they flow. And that's normal. That's normal. That's not a surprise. I mean, I knew that before the election. I know AEC workers who trained the other AEC workers. And when they first saw this, they thought, is this election rigging? And then as soon as I saw it, I was like, no, that's not what it is. That's called the second count. The first count is where they count the preferences, the first preferences for each party.
Yeah.
They don't do the flows. The second count, they checked that 3 times, by the way. The second count is for the media. That's the best way I heard Topher Field put it the other day. It's where they want to know who's going to form government on election night. So they cut corners. They do it really quickly, and they use some mathematical shortcuts in order to actually get that result. But on the third count, that's where they do the Topher Field video to work out if the preference flows actually ended up disproving the assumption that the major parties were going to win. So it all gets fixed up in the end, but a lot of people were very unfamiliar with that. So they thought that was election fraud.
Well, you have to look, let's go there. You and Topher know what you're talking about. Damien knows what you're talking about. So that's why it's good to interview me, because I don't. I'm just putting this on do not disturb.
It was funny. You said branch stacking last time. It was hilarious.
It was like I thought it was a bonfire. Now here, when you're hearing this and everyone's saying, "What are they doing?" and Australians unfamiliar, that's me. You know, you're thinking, "What are you doing? Put in Labor this," and we're all had 2 years of being very suspicious about the government, so we are extra cautious about anything they do. But I do think if you're going to do fraud, you don't do it right in the face of the person who's writing you, expecting you to do fraud. Going, yeah, don't worry about going those freedom fighters. Just stack Labor and Liberal, we'll be fine. I think they'd have a little bit more finesse, you know, if they're going to do it. So I wasn't buying that. But what I do want to interested in though is teal. Now we were laughing last night because we were saying, "What the hell is teal?" You know, suddenly teal. Everyone's talking teal. But what I was talking, these people coming up. I did a live from Cairns. They were saying there's voter fraud, this, and I said, I think we actually have to look at ourselves. What did we do wrong? Rather than pushing the blame, the fraud, this. No, what did we do wrong? And what did other people do right? And if we do go for other elections, state elections, what can we learn from them that we can be far more effective moving forward? And now teal, whether people like them or not, have done remarkably well, wouldn't you say?
Oh, phenomenally well. And it wasn't that difficult to see what they did. They were at it for 12 months. And it's not like this is the first election they've done this. Everyone's like, wow, that's amazing. Look what they did. No, guys, they've been at this for 12 months. And in fact, they did this to Tony Abbott in the 2019 election. He saw something like a 19% swing against him. It was wild. It was huge, which is a massive swing. So they took him from like a very safe seat to losing his seat, the former prime minister. And they invested millions of dollars. They had the whole organization called Get Up, which is a left-wing activist organization, targeting him, going in the community, and they just out-campaigned. They just had call flutes. They had signs up everywhere. They were handing out how to vote cards everywhere. They had no shortage of volunteers, finances, doing these billboards. I mean, it was a 12-month campaign to do that, and that's exactly what we saw with these teal independents this election. And the teal independents, of course, being this loose group of people that are endorsed by the Climate 200 people, Simon Holmes at court, and he invested $20 million into targeting these 20 seats, so $1 million a seat, and it worked. They got like six people up, and possibly 1 or 2 senators up. I mean, wow, that's amazing. And we should actually take a lot of lessons out of that. The way that they did that, it was targeted. Clive Palmer. Now that the election's over, I can criticize Clive Palmer a lot more hard. You don't know how to spend $200 million, mate.
Yeah, Clive Palmer did. I actually would love to interview Clive Palmer. I'd really like to meet him, but it's almost like he used a shotgun approach, shoot at everything, hope you hit something. Where these people seem to have had a sniper approach. We think we can get these ones, go after them, and go in, and it's worked.
100%. I think there was one really, from what I saw being on the ground, there was one seat I really think Palmer could have actually won, and it was my seat of Parramatta. He had a great candidate here, one of the best I'd seen in the country, Julian Fayed. And if he didn't get a single volunteer, not one, from to help him on the ground here. He didn't get, any targeted advertising. He did basically everything himself with his great team. And I'm like, wow, how could you have $200 million to throw around? And this guy can't, he's manning the polling booth every day getting worn out. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I don't, Clive Palmer, I have great respect for you and how you made your money, but I just don't think that you know how to spend $200 million on an election. Nor do I, mate. No, nor do I. I have no idea. However, I do know that there are very good people out there who are able to spend that money efficiently. You give them $500,000, they'll win a seat. They don't need $1 million. But the way he ran his campaign was exactly the way he ran the last campaign. It was blanket advertising. It was decentralizing. It was centralizing all the advertisement and all the decision making on preferences, on where advertising money goes. Gives tens of millions of dollars to a marketing company who manages it. I mean, this is not how you run a grassroots campaign that you want to look genuine. He ran the campaign as if he was running against Paul Keating in like 1980 or something.
So do you think it came across as disingenuous that he was across the boards? Because I mean, basically, the amount of money he spent is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary.
Little country towns, and there's posters up, huge posters
I
up.
think Topher Fields said something like he literally ruined the word freedom. That's how bad the advertising was. It worked in the opposite way. I mean, people are talking about renaming political parties, and they don't want to use the word Freedom Party because of what the UAP have done with the name. I have great respect for the people and the volunteers and the candidates that ran in the UAP, but I'm sorry, this is the third campaign Clive's run, and I don't. It's ridiculous. He can save face and say, we helped siphon votes at the 2019 election, but no, electoral success is what the freedom movement demonstrated the last 2 years. We're on track to get 4 to 5 or 6 senators up this election, and a lot of it was done. Okay. We've got so the way it stands right now is New South. It's looking like we've got Queensland, we've got WA is the skin of our teeth. We have South Australia. We will probably get Victoria as well. New South Wales is slightly in play, and Tasmania is really slim.
South Australia?
In South Australia, there's a lady called Jennifer Game. Her daughter recently got into to the state upper house of South Australia, and she's I think her name's Sarah Game, and she's done a phenomenal job. She almost got the balance of power actually on her own. But the Labor Party did some shifty numbers. That's another story. But well, they play within the rules.
Can I get back to freedom though? I was saying this all the time, and I think if we move forward, it's absolutely crucial. Now, as we were joking around, I didn't know what branch stacking was. I don't think a lot of Australians know what freedom is. So when you're saying freedom, what do you mean? Define it, because we've had it in such abundance that we haven't realized. And there's a guy in here, Harrison. He clearly defines it in 5 different like bullet point things. And I've been talking to a lot of people about what do you mean freedom. And people go, they even people running, I go, you're fighting for freedom. So define freedom. And they're like, so we have to clearly know what it is. I actually think there's 2. There's one, I think the best way is to go to asylum seekers. Why did you risk your life, leave your country, take, a harrowing journey to get here? What was it you wanted? Did you really just want to own a milk bar, or did you want to work in a nursing home, or were you after freedom? And most of them going, I was after the freedom to be myself, and I was after the freedom to speak. Both those 2 core freedoms are under severe attack, and I think that is how, instead of not using the word freedom, it's actually remarking it so we know what it is we're selling. It's like me selling you a car. Oh, you want to buy this car? And you go, what mileage has it done? I'm like, I don't know. What's, what? I don't know. And I don't know anything about it. How can I sell it to you?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's how we reinvigorate the word and actually get people more fired up by it is, and also that it's not just a gift, it's your responsibility, and that's I've been testing this in these lives, telling people it's our responsibility to hand over the same freedoms we were given to the next generation. They're ours to enjoy, they're ours to hand over. And you just have to travel the rest of the world to know that other countries do not have our freedoms. They don't.
Mm. Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a thought there. But
Yeah. What is
anyway,
freedom?
proceed. Yeah, what is it? It's a very simple. That's what I've been telling people. We really need philosophers in the freedom movement, people who are really thinking deeply and then quantifying it to even simple memes. I know that sounds, but memes are so clever. The
Mm.
new ones about the monkeypox are just hilarious. And the other side can't do memes. They can't do
Yeah.
memes. Klaus Schwab
They
can't
can't.
do memes. He must sit
Yeah. You
there
can't.
really angry, but he can't do any memes about
Yeah.
us that work. But
Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to work out what freedom is, but there's a lot of people that have had a crack at it in history. And I roughly know. I mean, I roughly know what it is. I mean, the Americans, with their amendments, had a pretty good crack at it. In their constitution, I think it starts off by basically saying people have the right to pursue, um, like a stable society and what is it? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, something
mm,
like that. And I think that a lot of people, they want stability in a country. They want the rule of law. They want equality before the law, which is more
mhm,
a recent addition in the last 70 years. They want the ability to have freedom of speech, both
mhm.
online and also in person. They want the freedom to actually practice their religion, assuming it doesn't, interfere
Freedom of
with criminal.
association.
Yeah, freedom of association. They want freedom of association as well. I mean, already that's looking like a pretty good list, and a lot of which we don't actually have. Freedom of speech is more of a tacit thing in our constitution. It's not as uh, concrete as the US First Amendment. Some people would like freedom to access a firearm, and that's something I definitely support. But I think that when especially this last 2 years has demonstrated that. But I think that
Mhm.
what's happened with the actual the definition of freedom is people they did have it too easy for 30 years before
That's right.
2021,
That's
and
right.
they didn't know what freedom was because we haven't really had a war in Australia before.
Well,
Even
can I
in
make a
World War One.
suggestion?
Mm,
You're a religious man. I'm a religious man. I've been telling people because I think about it all the time. You're on the road, you're meeting people, and when you're talking to different people all the time, it's the different ideas come in. They create new thoughts and new paths to think down.
mm,
And I told these young women the other day, I said, this is my interpretation that I think God gave you, Joel. He said, look, I'm going to give you a brain, a heart, a subconscious, and all these five senses and other things. You're like a filter for my creation. Go down there and experience the world. And when you get back, I want to know what you thought about it. And that's your responsibility to come back with the Joel Jammal report on life on this planet. And the only way you can give an authentic report is to be you. And so you have responsibility from God to be you, and that's freedom. So I actually think freedom is not only a gift, but it's a responsibility. And to defend that freedom, you need to have freedom of choice, which means yes, you wear a motorbike helmet, but if you don't want to wear one, your choice. I know it sounds simple, but it's your choice. You don't need to be
mm,
governed. You fall off, break your head. Well, you get up to God and you say, "Yeah, well, maybe I should order the helmet." But it's. I know it sounds very, very simple, and freedom of speech is. We're in a country where people are silenced. I mean, we were in this country town. It's remote, and it's so remote. It's incredible. And then there's this tourist guy, and he's sort of looking at our truck, and he's going, And I said, "Oh yeah, we're defending free speech. We're trying to get the truth out there because we think we're sort of girt by bullshit." And he's going, "Yeah, yeah," and he's doing this, yeah, and he's in a country town. There's like no one around. But
yeah.
he's that frightened, and he's you can see he's been a truck driver or something. This is a guy that should be sitting there going, this, but they're actually frightened. And so when
Mm.
you ask people to speak, like who wants to come up and speak and say what you think about the world, for you, me and you, it's easy. For you and I, it's easy. But for other people, they're like, no, I can't let people hear what I feel or think. And
Yeah.
that is dangerous. And that is, and we were saying this last night about the young people, because there was people my age attacking young people, saying they don't know anything, they don't know anything. And I said, actually, you know what? Look in a mirror. We were the ones that were given freedom. We are the ones that are given away. Not you, Jammal. I'm older than you. My generation gave it away. This is our fight. We
Mm.
have let down our society. And the young
Yeah.
people now, they're under so much peer pressure from peer pressure. They are living in a form of communism where they've got to hide what they think. And a perfect example is I met a young man. He said, I had heart issues. And he finally said, I thought, no, I'm going to put it up on Facebook. And he thought he was going to get attacked by all his friends. Instead, he got all these messages from all his friends and people in his school saying, I've got it too. I've
Mm.
got it too. So he
Mm.
gave them the right to speak where they were going to school. No one was speaking about it. Even the other day, I was doing cattle mustering because I wanted to interview these contract cattle musterers who'd come down from this remote cattle station to Canberra. And when I was there, they've got all these ringers. It was extraordinary. And they're really tough young guys. And this young guy's talking to me later and he goes, I'm unvaccinated. And he's hiding out on this remote cattle station and other ones in order, because he doesn't want to participate in it. And he doesn't get to go out with his mates and stuff. But they're men. These men have been working together for a
Yeah.
year. They don't know. And so they're
Yeah.
actually, lots of them are unvaccinated, but they don't know because they're too tired to bring it up. There's no way to bring it up. So this is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Freedom of speech is gone because
That's right.
it's not being defended. But the only way you defend freedom of speech is you've got to exercise freedom of speech. That's it.
That's right.
Otherwise, it's
That's right.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freedom of
There was
speech
a
is.
question there, maybe. I don't know. I'm just ranting on
No,
like an
no.
old man and stuff.
No. You're basically, we're in furious agreement. You're blaming, your own generation, perhaps the Boomer generation, and
Yeah.
around that.
I think
That
I'm just after the
basically
boomer generation.
just after. Well, I blame.
I don't
I
know what
blame
that
the.
generation X, Y. I never
I
got a
think it's
full
X.
name.
You're one of the first X generations, probably. But the
Yeah, I was born
Boomers
in the
and
60s, so in my
yeah.
50s. And
Oh, you're
you won't
probably
get this joke, but anyone who was born in the 60s, being born in the 60s,
yeah.
was like turning up at a great party that had just finished. There's a few hangers on in the kitchen going, man, you missed a great party. And that's your youth.
I
The
think you're still
60s
the.
was it.
I think you're still the Boomers. I actually think you might even be. Yeah. But the. I don't like to start. Age wars.
It's not age wars.
Generation wars.
This is a
No,
truth. This
it
is a
is, but it
truth.
is it's the truth, Michael. But I've pointed this out in the past, and
Mm.
I'm just like, hey guys, I'm a Generation Z. I can see how we got here because I understand history. I think you screwed the pooch on this one. I really do. I
Yeah, we
don't
did.
think
We did.
because the way it's meant to work is a society's elders are meant to pass down the knowledge to the next
Mhm.
generation. Now, what's
Mhm.
happened is I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know whose fault, and I don't really care. I'm more focused on moving forward. But what's happened is the greatest generation that fought in the world wars basically didn't sufficiently pass on the knowledge to the generations after that. Now, the
Mm.
boomers, being the kids that came after the greatest generation, they're called baby boomers because there were so many after the war. I mean, my mum
Mm.
was, one of 13 and my dad was one of 7. There was a lot.
Yeah, no.
And so you can imagine how many cousins I've got. Now, when it comes to the actual amount of lessons and to be taught to the next generation, it wasn't done sufficiently. Maybe because that's how there were so many of them. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, we're now in a situation where we don't understand what freedom is.
Yeah,
The
that's what
people in Australia during the World Wars understood what freedom was to
Mhm.
the extent that they were willing to get blown up overseas
Mhm.
on the beaches of Gallipoli. I mean,
Mhm.
mate, we got people that are giving up because of this last election. We had people going over to Gallipoli, often underage, and getting blown up, and it was still considered a victory, even though it was a complete militarily, just a massive disaster. Yet it was still considered, a victory because they stood up for their values. And we got people checking out of the election, like just a 2-year election.
I'm out here now, traveling around, and I see this. Like, I'm being taken to these remote cattle stations because farmers want to just have their peace. They're very much into their history. And you look at these remote stations and this landscape, and I'm thinking, men came here, were working here, young men, and they left this country to go to places like Gallipoli and the Somme, places they would never thought they would go to, even dying there, living this great beauty, this great freedom to go to another. You know what I mean? This was an enormous adventure, an enormous tragedy, and all these things. But here now, and I'm a child of the boomers. I know that because my parents are boomers. Here now, we're traveling around and we're going to towns interviewing, but everywhere we go, there are these grey nomads, they're called, going around snapping everything like nothing's wrong. That generation, I'm sorry, but you can't fix a problem unless you identify the problem. And one of the problems is that generation has sold our freedom out. That they're the ones. They were the ones that should be rigorously defending it. And when you do go to Melbourne and literally, I've been to Melbourne, all the marches all round up to Darwin and everything now. A lot of them are my age or 40, 50 and 60 and older. They get it. So there's a lot of people my age at these marches who are fighting because they understand this is our fight. They get it. But there's a lot of others out there who've gone, no, nothing to do with me. I'm this, and I've done what the government said. I've done this, and they have betrayed the coming generations, and literally, and now they have the audacity, which is what's really annoyed me. And so I'm telling people off in these lives now. They have the audacity to blame the youth, to say you don't know what no. They don't know what they're doing because you didn't teach them, and then you haven't defended it. These people went to Gallipoli to fight for our freedom in another country, and they gave their lives, and you gave away the freedom they fought and died for so you could have a latte. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. And they did, and then they allowed the education system to just be given up completely. The long march through the institutions. I don't know if I explained that in the last episode, but the cultural Marxists have successfully captured the mind of Australia. They've got the universities, they've got culture. Or everyone that's working in the media, has come from this. Even the priests in the churches go through, these colleges that have been infected with this cultural Marxism. And so the moment I say to them, okay, guys, I need funding. I need to go into these universities and challenge the factory of all bad ideas. I'm met with crickets, absolute crickets. You'd think that, let's use this election as an example, Michael. And I'm not trying to pump my own tires up here, but I had a budget of about $10,000 this election. $10,000. We successfully defunded the major parties, tens of millions of dollars, and a lot of that is because of the ideas we put out, and also the how to vote cards we put out, which was in the 250,000 how to vote cards. With just $10,000, we did so much damage in educating the public how to campaign, and it's looking like we're going to get a Senate spot almost in every state. Now, that's an amazing result for $10,000. Imagine if I had $1 million, $200 million. I mean, I probably wouldn't need it. I probably wouldn't have needed $200 million to do what I needed to do. But there are a lot of projects I didn't get off the ground. I promised my audience a lot of things. And many of the funding for that is still sitting on the side. I wanted to do an animation series, didn't have time. I wanted to do, a situation where we're going to train people up as scrutineers. Didn't have time. There were so many things we didn't have time for because it was just me and, a bunch of volunteers that were very educated in their area. Now, that's me working with baby funds. There are people that throw them out around massive amounts of money, not just Clive, lots of people, and they do not know how to spend it at all. And when it comes to they're just so willing to just throw money away thinking it's going to work. It's like, wow, guys. But look, I don't blame people. I do not blame people, especially you see a young guy, 25, it doesn't look like a secure investment. But I think that this election has shown that He who can be trusted with a little can be trusted with a lot. And I think
Yeah.
I've done that to a little extent. But look, I think that, you know, it's okay. It's okay, guys. We're learning. We are learning.
Well,
We're
there's two
making.
things to add to that, and I'll bring this up. One is, and this is funny. So we're doing this journey going around, and now we're getting some international press. There's international people interviewing us and saying what we're doing, and then Channel 9 came out apparently and said they're going to do exactly what I'm doing. They're going to go touring the country, asking people what they think about COVID, and we were laughing because we were saying the only word you're going to hear is cut, cut. You know, so what do you think? Yeah, I think we lost our cut. You know, it's just like this is just going to be nothing unless they get a few people they pay actors to say, yeah, I'm really happy that I lost my business and I'm so, you know, it's just not going to work. So that's just funny.
Yeah.
Two, this is real.
Yeah.
The people say you're enjoying yourself. I wouldn't say enjoying myself. We're doing work. We work really hard. What there is, even though we laugh a lot, which I think tyranny hates laughter. So that's one of the reasons we go for humor, is there's a great hypocrisy in the country. One hypocrisy that's not mentioned is we are recording the stories of people who should be almost idolized. These are people with great integrity, doctors, nurses, even people who work in supermarkets. So like a young girl, Victoria, I interviewed last night. She works in the supermarket, 14 years on the job. She walked away. I don't want to do this. She defended her freedom and her integrity and lost everything, lost family, lost friends. She came up, she gave us a big hug. This is a person who has qualities that we should be holding up on an altar and saying, look at this person, that this is a wonderful Australian. This is what we can build a better Australian built on the qualities of these people. And instead, they're lepers, they're vilified. And the people have been held up with the people. Like I saw this, I was in Kalgoorlie and they had this statue of an Anzac warrior and he had a bayonet and he's going forward. And I was looking at it thinking, you know what? Our generation's statue, his pants should be down and he should be bent over and there should be like 3 needles in his butt. You know, it's basically teaching your children, if the government comes to bully you, give in. Just give in. Don't fight it. This is what we want. Give in.
Yeah.
And and to me, this is the tragedy of it. So that's why I'm very interested. I don't usually get in the issues. I try to just hold these people up to go, look, these people are holding the ground. These are the fighters. These are the Gallipoli warriors. They're here now everywhere. People who run cafes who refuse to the mandates and are getting huge fines. It's
I
they're
saw
everywhere.
that. I saw that. Before the 2019, so before the 2020 sort of events for the last couple of years, I saw this mentality in my own mother, actually. I love my mum; she's awesome. But I have to tell this story. In 2018, I'd finished my degree for property economics so that I could get a white collar job and get off the construction site and keep working with my hands. And so I ended up finishing at the end of the year. I get this pink piece of paper about the size of a vote ballot. And on the front of it, it says, do you want your results? And then if you turned it over, it said, complete the mandatory sexual consent training. They had an online course that you had to complete to teach you about consent in sex, how not to basically rape. And this was not something I'd signed up to. This wasn't like you get credit for it. This was like, I was at the conclusion of my degree and they were making me do this test to basically, you know, this training, online training course, and I wouldn't get my results unless I completed it. Now, I think that everyone should, of course, understand, you know, consent and all of that in sex. They should. That should be something you don't have, you know, before university. You should be taught it from your parents, and if not your parents, probably in school. But seriously, I mean, they tried to hold up my entire, I'd finished everything. I'd passed all my exams, but they were just not going to let me get my degree by that point. And I just stood my ground and I said, no, you move. I'm not moving. I'm not going to complete this thing. It was the concept. It wasn't that I think it's fine for women to be raped. Not at
It's a
all.
principle.
Not at all.
No, it's a
It's the
principle.
it's the principle of this wasn't in
Mm,
my contract, and you can't just
mm,
push this on me and make it sound like, I'm the one that needs training on this. You guys need training on what free speech is. And I'm saying no
mm,
to this on a number of conscientious grounds.
mm,
And that was it. And I didn't move. I said, no, you move. And I remember my mum at the time, and this is where she comes in. She said, Joel, just do it. Just get it over and done with. Just get out of there
yeah.
and whatever. And I was like, Mum, this is the reason why things got so bad, because
Mm,
people in your generation had that mentality. Just do it. Yeah,
that's
just
right.
do it to get by. You are
That's right.
empowering
I love
something
my
that should not
parents, but
have.
they're the same.
You
I
should
love
you
my
sh-
parents,
you
but they're the
What
same.
you're doing is you are empowering something that should not have power, but because
Mm,
of the veneer, the thin veneer of
mm,
paper that is in front of your eyes, you're like, oh, it must be legitimate. It must be,
mm.
like I don't want my son to be a rapist. He should do the
And
training.
But that,
I
but
mean,
that, what that is, it's a war on men. It's
it is.
basically saying all men are and it was like the same when uh, the the young men in school, the young boys, were told to stand up and apologize to the girls for
Mm,
sexual assaults and everything. And you're going, excuse me?
yep.
You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah.
interviewing a woman later, hopefully coming on. She's got 4 boys. She really wants to speak about this because she thinks that young males in schools aren't being invigorated. There's nothing really for them. Everything is driven
Mm,
towards women, so the women's excelling and the men are dropping off. And that's and I do meet that a lot. I meet
mm,
so many young men now who are highly intelligent, but have just left the whole schooling thing. They're not interested, or
yeah.
they have to be woke. You know what
That's
I
right.
mean? Which is, and
Yeah.
they actually have uh, a filter system before they laugh. Can I laugh at this? They just don't laugh naturally. Like
Mm,
jokes, no one does jokes anymore. You can't do them. So it's, can I? I'm in a
mm,
thing. Can I laugh at that? Is it going through? It's and it's just yeah. So I think with the Marxism thing, that's really interesting.
mm,
Damien talks about this a lot. He left university. He's incredible intellect. He left university because of that. He couldn't take it. Yeah, he
right.
couldn't do the indoctrination,
Right.
and so I think this is the battleground of taking back everything. It's not just an
Yeah.
election. There's no quick, easy fix. This is a long war. I knew we
Mm,
weren't going to everything was going to be fixed by this. I knew that,
yeah.
but it's moving forward. Another thing too, I think now is not only, and this is why I wanted to get you on, it's not only identifying what went wrong and problems and getting everything out, but I think it's time to bring everything out of our closets and everything that's not working and get it all out there so we can air it and fix the problems. Like when an aircraft falls out of a sky.
Mm.
We all watch those shows. They spend there and they go, "We finally found it. It was this little thing." We have to
Yeah.
do that to ourselves. We can't go,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, it was rigged." This no, no. What went wrong? How do we
Yeah.
fix this? This is our
Yeah.
responsibility to the future generations. How do
Yeah.
we do it? And the greatest tool we have at the moment is talking, discussion,
Right.
debate. Go
That's right.
ahead, feel this. Coming
Yeah.
ahead. People tell me like these women go on to me. This is the big one. I'm going to talk it now because I haven't done it before. I get harassed by these people who go, they're building tunnels. There's tunnels. There's a tunnel from Canberra to New Zealand. And I'm going, a tunnel. Yeah. And the thousands of kids have been. So they've got a tunnel from the Parliament House to New Zealand. And I'm thinking, okay. And finally I said, listen, don't you think if they had the technology to build a tunnel that far, that they just build a spaceship that could get there like in a second? And then how do they transport these children down the tunnel? And this person actually said to me, they've got trains. Oh, so they've got trains down there. Okay, so even if you've got a train, that's 3,000 kilometers. That's a long train trip. You're talking days in a tunnel. Who looks after it? You got a breakdown crew. You got to think how.
You
Where does
got a
the
breakdown.
oxygen come from? It's just let's use common sense. So we're always
Yeah.
doing the class swaps, but let's do it our other way because we've got a
Yeah.
lot of people who believe a lot of strange stuff, which is
Yeah.
discrediting the freedom movement. So
Oh
people
yeah.
think we're a load of kooks,
Yeah.
and stuff like this.
They do.
Common law. I want to talk about common law. Everyone goes common law, common law. Yeah, common law is great. But who's going to defend it? Who's going to enforce it? You're going to go up to the police commissioner and say, "I arrest you." Where's your army to, you know? And you go,
Yeah,
let's get real here as we're moving ahead. You don't
yeah,
like this system? Great. Someone goes to me that oh yeah, I'm sovereign, so they can't touch me. Really? Really? So there's someone comes in with a gun at your head and they can say, bullets bounce off me, I'm sovereign. No, no. They go through your skull, kill you. This is it. This is where we have to, I think, um, get real. Get real.
yeah,
Quantify
yeah,
what it is we're fighting for. And then once we quantify what it is we're fighting for, that will become like a destination in the distance. Once it becomes a solid destination, we're naturally going to figure out ways to get there because that's what humans are really good at,
that's
you know?
right.
And
That's
it's
right.
like
Yeah,
there's like Everest. There's Everest. We want to climb Everest. People died trying to climb it, but finally they got up there because they
mm,
could see it. There's the summit. I'm going to climb the summit. I'll find a way. That's where we are now. We're at base camp, covered in snow because an avalanche just rolled us down. Brushing
yeah,
ourselves off. Okay, let's have another go. But this time we don't go the same way using the same techniques because we're just going. That's stupid.
yeah,
So
yeah,
first off, what did we do wrong? What did we
yeah,
do wrong? Not the government,
yeah,
not the this. What did
yeah,
we do wrong? Let's
yeah,
fix make our own bed, like Jordan Peterson says, then proceed forward to take our country back.
yeah.
I should be
I
asking you questions, but I just end up ranting like,
No, no,
yeah.
mate, this is great. Last full credit to you, Michael. Last conversation we had, it was scarily accurate, not only about the problem with the election, like the result and what it would be. We not only predicted the election result, but we also predicted the problems that had
Mm,
made the election result. And you were very receptive to that because you'd seen that yourself. I mean, I didn't
mm,
see you shaking your head, you were nodding your head. Um, the only difference was I was worried that not only had the problems infected the upper, sort of influencer class of the freedom movement, but I actually felt a lot more strongly it was percolating down to the very bottom as well. Because people become the leaders that they follow, and
mm,
that's why you see me. I don't swear in my segments. There's a lot of
mm,
things that I want. It's the best thing when I see a mother say, "Thank you, Joel, for your content. My son watches you. He looks up to you." Because it's like
mm,
those are the people. If we win this, those are the kids that are going to be the leaders of the future.
mm.
That's not something to be understated. We are
No.
already better. We are already better than the generation that didn't pass us the freedom
Mm,
because we
mhm.
passed it on to the younger generation. That's why it's
Yeah, that's right.
important. It's an
That's right.
investment for later.
Yeah.
We don't need the kid right now. We don't need him now, but he will pick up and lead people later
Mm,
because he will say, "I remember seeing Joel at town hall. I remember Joel
mm,
doing all these segments talking about the tyranny of Gladys and Dan Andrew."
mm,
And those kids will inspire others because courage
mm.
is infectious and leadership
Yeah. And
is what's needed.
another thing to do, it's cool to be a freedom fighter. It is not
Mm,
cool to be a sheep.
mm. Exactly,
Sheep aren't
exactly, and
cool.
what, society's come around on a lot of the freedom fighter policies. They just don't want to admit it. They don't want to admit
Mm,
that they're ashamed of the way that they treat us the last 2 years. They
mm,
think that I did a segment the other night. I don't know if you saw it. I should have called it the most powerful 15 to 25%. Our group, what we have done the last few years is amazing. It's never been
I agree.
done in Australia's history, really, other than the world
Mm,
wars. We managed to mobilize hundreds of thousands of people from across the
mhm,
continent. We managed to
mhm,
fundraise things like lawsuits and also look out for the most vulnerable in our society, especially
mhm,
in the lockdowns. I can speak for New South Wales. We
mhm,
managed to actually translate the people coming to protests into votes, and we've equated that to about 15 to 20% of the population.
mm,
That's about a Senate seat every state. That's amazing. And
mm.
we've also built an entirely new media class, all in the span of 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that is amazing. And we're only
Yeah.
2 years in. I mean, we're up against crazies that
We're up
these
against
well funded.
great trillionaires.
Yes,
You're talking
yes,
about 10,000, but we're up
yeah,
against trillionaires. These people, money is
exactly.
no object. The
Mm,
only thing we have in our favor is that they're trying to sell us something that our souls don't want. We don't want tyranny. We don't want it. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how you package it up. You're trying to package it all
Yeah.
this way. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
We don't want it.
Yeah.
Eventually, people want what we had. We
Yeah.
want freedom. You want to be able to. You just want to be able to be free. Go out, have
Yeah.
a chat, have a this. But
Yeah.
that's where I think moving forward is quantifying who we are. That's what we are. That's who we want. I even tell people, like last night's thing, I said, look, start calling yourselves brother if you or sister. I said it sounds like nothing, but it's actually really powerful because the other side are going to get very isolated. They're scared to talk to each other in case this, and then they're going to be looking at us and go, they call themselves brother, they call themselves sister, they hug. I
Yep.
want to be a part of that. My soul's yearning. This is what I have in marches. I haven't had it recently, but especially in Melbourne, be there. People would come up
Mm.
and grown men, and they go, "Can I have a hug?" They hug, and they'd sob. They would
Mm.
sob because they've been holding on to so much thing. This is a time of our culture realizing something has gone. Australia has gone. The Australia you thought we lived in, it's gone. We went. Even a woman told me yesterday, which I thought was really interesting. She said we were a sick society. Mother Teresa came here and said Australia is a spiritual desert. And we say, "Oh, she's a terrible woman. She did terrible things." Yeah, like feeding millions of starving. Come on, yeah. That's what she said about us. And I
Mm.
do it. We had a huge suicide rate. We got lots of people on antidepressants. You know what I mean? Where a lot of people doing things they don't like, meaningless lives, really.
Mm.
This is and we hid it all under a poster which was covered in myths. There's Gallipoli, there's Paul Hogan. Throw another shrimp on a barbie and your neighbor under a bus.
Yeah.
It's time now for us to become the architects of the future. And if it's based on a freedom that we won we wrenched back from tyranny, we did it. Not just me. I'm talking about all of Australians. We wrenched it back and said, no, this is the gift that we're handing to the next generation. That will be a life worth living and worth being remembered for, rather than saying like your mother, "Oh, just do it, just do it." No, that time
Exactly.
is over. Now
Exactly.
we're on this land base, and people say you're loving that. The land is beautiful. The land will still be beautiful even after we're gone. The land is here. It was here with the indigenous. It was before them as well. The land is not going anywhere. The indigenous had
Mm.
their culture, and I'm learning things about how they used to trade, and even things like they have these huge grinding rocks which are out there, because why carry it around? So
Mm-hmm.
they leave them places. There was an entire culture here that we eradicated basically, and are trying to wipe out what's left. And we built our culture upon it. And these indigenous people I talk to go, we understand. The new Australia is going to be all these different cultures together, and we want to be a part of that. We want to be called
Mm.
originals, which I think, yeah, that's beautiful. And
Mm.
so they want to build a culture. That's why I'm even talking. I get these original people to talk about the massacres. We massacred
Mm.
people. We seriously massacred people. There is blood-soaked history here. Yes, there's Gallipoli, but there's other stuff too. And if we air this and we go, yep, we've got the courage to look at our shadows, the courage to look at the darkness in our soul. And then
Mm.
what that allows us to do is balance it with the light in our soul. And we are going to gravitate more towards the light. And for people like me and you, we're using God as a compass. Other people use this. And this is what we're creating. And we're creating a community. This is what our community believes. This is what we try to aspire to. And
Mm.
this is what we want to leave to the next generation, that they can prosper and be happy and not have to have this fight. If there's going to be a fight, let it be in
Mm.
our time, let it be now, and
That's right.
and let's get down to it. And it's going to be
Yeah.
long, but it's the fight. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
third
And
rant of the show.
it is. It is. I think. What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? Yeah. Look, we learnt a lot, didn't we? This election.
We
First
did.
off, it's not. First off, it's not easy. Trying
Mm.
to actually win these seats. Understand. I told you last time what we were up against. this massive political infrastructure, and I broke that down by party. I've lost you. He's flipped it. I think that people are starting to understand exactly what a certain amount of effort translate to in result. You know, great, we got some senators up. Great, we defunded the major parties something like $10 million. Great, we made a significant chip in the size of the lower house, 15 to 20%. You know, we've built culture. We can mobilize people wherever we want. We built this entire media class, and we've demonstrated an ability to raise huge amounts of funds for lawsuits and to support the most vulnerable in our community. Okay, great. Where to from here? What we're doing right now is basically trying to work out and iron out some of the kinks in our community. And I called some of them out in the last conversation. I said, this has become a mean, ugly, you know, very unpleasant community in the comment sections, at least. I mean, you can really see it there. People, if you're not 100% pure on something, then you're taken out. It's not good enough. All your other efforts, it doesn't matter. It's not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not calling out the tunnels, then you're a pedo protector, basically. That's how they put it. Now, this is a disgusting sort of culture and attitude, and that's not something I try to bring to my segments. I try to uplift people. I try to empower people on an individual basis, and you do that through storytelling and giving people a mic. But there's no doubt that there's going to be. It seems like there's a bit of a schism that's going on right now where we're splitting. Where you know, I've had some very tough conversations and segments with my audience where I've called this out, and I've said no. You're all talking about the World Health Organization and the World Health Treaty that they're negotiating right now. I'm sorry, but you're wrong on it. You are wrong. The treaty does not give any power over Australia at this point in time. Not until, you know, it gets actually ratified in the Australian parliaments. That's why we need to fight these elections. People didn't like that. They liked the idea of actually, you know, having this fear porn, and it was driven by people that make money off this fear porn. To basically tell them, oh yeah, this is actually a thing. You know, I was so frustrated when I saw that because I could see exactly what was going on. As someone that often gets called a grifter myself, to see people making money off.
Oh, that's what they call me, Michael Grey Grifter. I think it actually sounds pretty cool, to be honest.
Kind of rolls off the tongue.
And to tell you, not to interrupt you, but this is really funny. So we're doing a live yesterday at here. And there's some women sitting there, and we wanted that table because we're doing a live from there, and the people aren't moving. So some of our people sat near them, and then I came up and I just said to our people, look, out of courtesy, have you informed these people that we're all unvaccinated? Well, these people are gone.
That's great. That's so good. I like it.
And then the other one, I don't know if you heard this, but we were in I had to interview 3 deregistered doctors because we're trying to get some funding up for them to fight their court cases in a hotel that was like a Nazi hotel in this backwards of WA. And they had an internet, and it was crap internet. And we called up and said, look, do we have any faster internet? And they said, oh, you got to pay for that. So you got to come down. So we went down. We're trying to hide the fact. I actually wore a mask to blend in because I wanted that fast internet. I got this big thing. So I think, anyway, I'm going on, talking with the woman, and she's going, oh, we don't know how to fix it. Well, yeah, okay, we'll come back in half an hour. And when we came back, and I sent my colleague Wendy, I said, listen, I need that internet. Go down there and tell them Dr. Michael has been on the road all day, and he's got an important interview with 3 prominent virologists to talk about the COVID thing. Is there any chance we could get this faster internet? So she went down there, she did it. Not only did we get the internet for free, these Nazis paid for it. And then I went on to interview 3 deregistered doctors on an anti-vaxxer channel. Now that is grifting. It's grifting. So I earned the name. I'm quite.
I don't think that quite makes the definition. I don't think you are one at all.
It's pretty cool. We were giggling our head off. You know what I mean? But there's a thing like that. But going back to what you're saying, yes, I'm with you. It's and I know you don't try to bring this bad stuff up, and I don't either. I try not to get into conspiracy theory stuff like this, but I do think I have a saying that I've used when I'm writing plays, that, and it's a philosophy of a play. If you want to reach an end, a happy end, you want to reach the dawn, you have to go through the dark. You can't
Mm.
scoot around it. Antidepressants is a way of trying to scoot around the dark. You want to fix your depression, figure out why you're depressed. You have to go, you have to do the hard yards and go in. And that's where I think the freedom movement is now. We have to say to the Australian people, the government's going this way with tyranny and uncertainty, and maybe to lock you down and overreach. We want to offer you a different Australia, but what is that Australia? And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
if we can, and it can take time, but if we can
Mm.
quantify it, we can sell it, then we can sell it, and people are going, yeah, I think I'll go with freedom.
Yep.
Then we
Yep.
proceed forward. That's what, and we
That's right.
don't need a lot of money to do that, but we
Yeah.
do need clear, defined messages. We need, and we have a better marketing pitch. We have a better product. You know, they've got a
Yep.
mousetrap that actually traps you. We've got a
Yep.
mousetrap that
Yep.
actually traps mice. We've actually
It's
got the better product. We just have to sell it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
Sorry,
funny because
I
it's
interrupted you.
almost no, no. It's fine. I mean, this is what makes these conversations great. The actual factor that people think that it's not an even fight. Guys, it's actually
Mm,
an even fight. If truth is on your side, then what could be
mm,
against you? Yes, they have more funding. Yes, there is a lot more people that they have. Yes, they have a situation where they have political pressure and they have people on every level of government. Yes, but they are not a cohesive group. They can't tell 15 to point me to another 15 to 20% of the population this election where they could do what we did. They
mm,
can't. Scott Morrison,
mm,
and even Anthony Albanese, Albo, he won this landslide victory. Wow, amazing. His vote, his primary vote is as low as it was in the early 20th century
mm,
for the Labor Party. That's crazy. Now, the
mm.
actual, ability to muster hundreds of thousands of people at a location of his choosing, he can't do that. People would say, "Get lost." I've got plans that day. We can do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like people, they
That's what
gloss
Epic
over these
was.
points. Yeah,
That's what Epic
yeah,
was. Epic was a few of us, you, Hoodie, myself, and a few other people going, all different things, come to Canberra. Come to
yeah,
Canberra. And then people spreading it on the internet, even
yeah,
unknown to each other. Almost like, I hate to say it, like ISIS. It was almost like, you couldn't say who was the leader here, but that's what it
yeah.
was. It was a good ISIS. And it was,
Exactly.
but it was, and then they came, and we were there. We saw that there is no way on earth the mainstream media, Klaus Schwab, all these other people, whoever's behind it, that they could compel that many Australians to go that, or to make that journey on their own volition to get the booster or the fourth jab.
Mm,
Ain't never going to happen. No time ever. They did that for
mm,
freedom. And
exactly.
that's why I think Camp Epic, if we understand Camp Epic and what was incredibly historic and beautiful and important about Camp Epic, in
Yeah,
the future they might look back and go, Camp Epic was when they started the road to victory.
yeah,
They didn't see it
yeah.
then, but it was
Exactly.
when they had it in. They found it was like a gathering of guardians of freedom. They were compelled, as maybe as God speaking, who knows, but there was something astonishingly incredible there. And the reason they had to discredit it and hide it and even attack it
Yeah,
was because they knew how dangerous we were.
yeah.
We were the resistance.
Exactly. What were those LRAD machines that they used on us, guys?
Mm.
I remember the feeling that I had. But this is the thing, Michael. What we did there was amazing. The freedom movement.
Mm.
I mean, every protest you go to, it's an amazing cross section of Australia. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
got 100 times more diversity than the Teal
Mm.
independent campaigns. Oh my gosh. We
Mm.
have every ethnicity, every religion. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's very hard. How did you do that? I can't get anyone to agree on anything.
No, that's right.
But look, but look, the freedom, it's so cool. It's just so cool the way it's sort of panned out. But I'm excited to see how things pan out in the future. Because we're only just getting started.
That's correct, Joel.
Mm,
That's correct.
mm,
That is the most important comment of this whole conversation. We're only getting started. Look what we've
mm,
done. We had Camp Epic, the one of the greatest gatherings of freedom fighters and greatest protests in Australian history. We did that. No money,
yep,
no this. We basically did that using social media. We've
yep,
survived censorship.
mm,
We keep going. Nothing stops us. You know,
mm,
even
yep.
in our own midst, when our own midst is dividing us and censorship, we keep going. You
That's
know,
right. That's
General
right.
Hoodie, I call Hoodie the general. You know, because
Yeah.
he continues to go out. It's like he turns up. I was there at Kings Park where he turns up. Here's the great man, and he turns up, and they swamp around him. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
It's
Yeah.
and I try to find heroes everywhere. And there's a woman in this town, Cairns. She's got a website with 25,000 business owners against the mandates. Port Hedland apparently is throwing out all the mandates. Their mayor and everything. These are victories. We have to sell the victories. There's little victories happening everywhere, and there's great fight in this country. Great fight, and
Mm,
it knows. One of the most astonishing interviews I've done, and I don't want to belittle all the other interviews, uh, was because I just do a speech sometimes before that this is the time to speak. We're in a war of silence, and where you got
mm,
fear and silence of the henchmen. The only way to fight against them is to have the courage to speak. And this Malaysian-born pharmacist came out and said, "I'd like to talk," and he did an interview which went viral. Amazing interview. And he said, "That's it." And he's still talking to me afterwards, said he felt better for doing it. Once you go over, then you realize I've stood up. Once you stand up, the beauty of standing up is very hard to sit back down. You're up,
yeah,
you're
that's
up.
right.
And
That's
then you
right.
can
That's
only go
right.
on your feet once, not on your knees every day.
Mm.
That's a gift. Yeah. So
It
I
is. It
believe it.
is.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
But
Yeah.
it's so
Even if they
fragile, Michael. It's so
mm,
fragile. Like this, like as great as the movement is, it's so fragile. There are ways we can make it more solid and into more of a fortress. But the problem is we've got to address those things about the culture. If we want
mm,
people to stay with us, we've got to recognize we've got to make it a nice place to stay, just
yeah.
like a hotel. I think that the what we saw the last week was crazy, absolutely crazy. People willing to throw in the towel just like that. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael, they'd completely forgotten what I told them. I even did a video the night before the election. I said, guys, this is what's going to happen. Election night is going to be bad news. All right, it's going to be bad
Mm,
news for these reasons. Just hang
mm,
on, wait a week. We'll see what
mm,
happens. What
mm.
happens? Everyone throws in the towel. The election night comes. People are saying, "Oh, it was rigged. It was this. It was that." I'm like, guys, please don't go down this path, please. And so I'm sort of the vision of it is, it was a bunch of cats that thought they were lions. That was how I explained it to you. That I was standing up against this crowd, screaming at them, saying, turn back, go the other way. This is not the way. I've seen, because I followed US politics, I've seen this happen twice. When I was a lefty, people tried to blame Russia for Trump's win in 2016, and it destroyed them. It destroyed networks like the Young Turks. It destroyed a lot of progressive commentators who I thought they were pretty good. The
I used to
smart
love the Young
ones,
Turks.
the Young Turks. Yeah, well, the smart ones from them, like Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kalinski's Secular Talk, they picked up
Mm,
on it very early. They used to be with the Young Turks, and they picked up on it.
mm,
Now, if you guys don't know who these people are, that's fine. The concept is there are these few people that work out that, hang on a sec, they smell a rat. There's something wrong with this. This is a lie
mm,
we're telling ourselves because we can't
mm,
reconcile with the fact that the majority of the country did not vote with us. That's
mm,
what the lefties did, and that's what I did. No, I didn't really do it. I mean, I was sort of following it in 2016. Then the Republicans sort of did it in 2020 with the presidential election, and it was so bad, the amount that they did it, that they ended up losing the Georgia state election, the Georgia runoff election for 2 Senate spots, and that gave the power of the Senate over to the Democrats just because they didn't believe in the validity of the elections. Now, I saw how my counterpart in the US, Charlie Kirk, dealt with that at the time. And I learned a lot of lessons about how he did that. Now, this is the thing. In our election, was there voter fraud? Yes. Was it to the extent that happened in the US? No way.
Yeah.
Even the Senate, and you guys will say, oh, what about the Senate ballot and how the AEC were giving out incorrect information in Victoria so that people like Damian Richardson and Monica Smith could get up? I'm sorry, guys. They were never going to get up. How many electorates are there in Victoria? There's 35 electorates, 50 voting booths per electorate, and you need at least 6 to 8 volunteers per voting booth. Do the maths. They did not have that many volunteers. No. They did not have that many volunteers. They were not making the right sounds in order to get a Senate spot up. I'm sorry. God bless them. I hope they run again, but they didn't do enough. It's bloody difficult. You need a party infrastructure, multiple party infrastructures to get elected. I mean, we needed all the freedom parties, all 10 of them, and their preferences in order to get maybe a Senate spot in every state. That's difficult. That's hard. And I knew we weren't making the right sounds before the election. But to see people say that the entire election result was rigged because we didn't get our way, I'm sorry, we come across as petulant children. The election fraud that happened in the US was humongous. They changed, and this is the thing, Michael, I'm so lucky I covered it over the last 2 years. I have a good standing with my audience in calling out voter fraud because I did it for the US election. They did it with, some of the voting systems. They did it with some of the actual, they changed the laws last minute to do universal mail-in balloting without amending the Constitution. They meant to put it to the electorate. They did that. They ended up getting sued by the other states over there, which didn't allow, a lot of the things that were going on there were just completely unconstitutional. They were getting called out by other states, and the Supreme Court wasn't taking it up. They had big tech smashing people hugely, absolutely massively, as the Donald would say. And then they also had a situation where there were ballots and boxes rocking up, and it was like, guys, we didn't have that in Australia. And if we did, I'd call it out. We do have election fraud, and there's certain things we can do to solve that, including showing ID when you vote. But to pretend that we had the same situation as the US, I'm sorry, it's a lie. It's a lie. That is not what we saw. We didn't put in the work sufficiently in order to get lower house seats up and more senators up. And anyone that tells you otherwise, you ask them, which seat should we have won? How many votes would we have gotten? And no one could answer me the question of which seat would we win before the election, because they couldn't. Because every time they came back with a seat, I told them, no, this is what's going to happen in that seat.
Yeah, another interesting thing. I have to go to Stand in the Park soon. Another interesting thing that I think we are not addressing is: are we living in an echo chamber? The Facebook algorithms link us up with people who think like us. So we think the world thinks like us. The world doesn't think like us. There are people in WA and there's people in Victoria, lots of people who would erect gold statues to Dan Andrews and lay wreaths at his feet. They think he saved them.
Yep.
So this is the truth.
Right.
It's what we're up against. One of the biggest questions we have to ask ourselves, and I have yet to find anyone who can really give me a great answer, is what is wrong with the other people who don't see the way we see? We're baffled by our brothers and sisters. And we need a huge portion of them to come back to us, and we need to talk about how to do that. And I'd love to have that in a further discussion. But these are things. What the word I hear the most is baffled. And I do feel that we are living in this echo chamber and all patting ourselves on the back, whatever this, and actually we're not being as effective as we can. And we have to cross the border to try reach the others. And I think it's a very, very interesting time. It's a very good time to be alive in a way, because who's the major guy in America? The major one that does what we do. They tried to ban him off Spotify. Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. He said the biggest lesson he's learned is that struggle is good, and I do that. I actually, even though I even today, early before this, I did an interview with a man who lost his wife. It was horrendous. We were both in tears, actually. It was so horrendous. But we put it up there. We're spreading it out. It's doing good work. I feel that I believe that's the direction we have to go for my film. I'm happy to put everything into that fight, whether that's people say you got God on your side or whatever. I just feel I don't know the destination yet, but I know I'm on the right path, and that's faith. And
That's
I
right.
could be completely wrong. I could be completely delusional, but that's my choice.
That's right.
I'm a free man in a free country, and I'm choosing to fight to lead Australians in that direction because I think we'll have a better country. This is where
That's
we
right.
are. I'll
Yeah.
let you go out and finish this up, and I'd love to have another discussion like this with you again, and see what happens. But is there anything else you'd like to say before I
Yeah,
play my
sure. I
latest
think a
clip?
cool I think a cool message to finish off would be the parable of the talents. You know, a master, he went to his three servants and he gave them talents. To one of them, each of them he gave to their ability. To one of them he gave 1 talent. To one of them he gave 5 talents, and to another he gave 10 talents. The master went away for a while, and he didn't tell his servants how long he'd be away. And he says, basically, work with what you've been given. And so, what do the servants do? The servants they go away and they start working with what they've got. The master comes back at a time of not their choosing, and he basically says, "Okay, how'd you guys go?" The servant with the 10 talents basically said, "Here, I got you 10 more. I put it to work, and this is what I came up with." And the master said, "Well done. Because you've been trusted with a little, I will trust you with a lot. Here, take care of these 10 cities that I control." And then he says to the other servant, "Oh, I gave you 5 talents. How did you go?" And the servant basically says, "Oh, I managed to get 5 more. Now you have 10 talents." And he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been trustworthy with a little bit. Now I will trust you with a lot more." And then he went to the servant with the 1 talent, and he says, "How did you go?" And the servant said, "Basically, I ended up putting it in a ditch and hiding it, and basically hiding it here to keep it safe." And the master said, "You wicked servant, you could have at least left it with the bank so it would get interest." And he threw the I think he took the talent off that particular servant, and he gave it to the one with the 10 talents. And the moral of the story is we are all given gifts: spiritual, physical, financial, and the meaning of life is to use those gifts to make the world a better place and to use them to pursue truth. And that is the story of the freedom movement. That is the story of Australia. That is the story of your life with your family. And in order to make the country a better place, you must not bury your talents. You put the lampstand up high so it can actually give light to the entire house. You don't put it under a blanket. And that's what people need to do. It's not my way or the highway, guys. It's not Joel's way is the political way, which is the only way. Michael, you put your skills to use in telling stories and in drawing that out of people and in art. Other people have different talents that are God-given. Whether they are Christian or not, you have God-given talents. And it's up to you to work out the best way to give that out to the world and share it. That's the meaning of life. And that's how I see this movement going. It's giving people the individual tools to amplify that as well.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. God bless, mate.
Awesome.
I'll
Thanks, Michael.
let's do this again. Let me know when you're free and when I've got data. Who knows where I'll be.
See you, Michael. God
Okay.
bless.